What's up, guys? Benny. Breaking news, the single greatest day in the history of the Supreme Court and Donald Trump's presidency just happened moments ago. It's the reason why I have a gavel inside of the studio, and it's for headlines like this. Trump slams gavel. Freaking go! Donald Trump with a round of massive culture war victories at the Supreme Court that is crumbling the left-wing pagan power throughout our culture, protecting our children, protecting our presidency, and protecting our nation. Win after win after win today. Let's just do the quick math here, shall we? Most nationwide injunctions, they're kind of like, hey, we found a criminal alien gang member. We like him. You're not allowed to deport any criminal alien gang members. That was like what district judges were doing to Trump. Those are done. Those are unconstitutional. Finished. The Supreme Court saying effectively that those petitioners could potentially be protected if they have a lawyer and if they have the means to try and fight their deportations, if they can actually petition the court correctly, that no judge can just say all criminal aliens are protected forever. That's not allowed anymore. Beautiful. It has to be a case-by-case basis, which is, of course, the way that it has to work, right? Yeah, we're a nation of laws. Trump's birthright citizenship ban is now in effect. The court will rule on birthright citizenship, but of course, it's a suicidal and idiotic policy that was never intended to be a permanent policy of this country. Birthright citizenship effectively is cultural suicide. Some tourist from Uganda has a baby here, and that baby's then allowed to be an American citizen with full vested rights? That's insane. Those are the laws on the books right now. Trump ended it, thank God, and it needs to be put an end to permanently, but Trump's ban is in effect right now. You're not allowed to go have a baby in China, and suddenly your baby's Chinese with all the rights of a Chinese citizen. There aren't any, but whatever, right? It's absurd, okay? Oh, my baby's Chinese now. That's insane. It's insane. Parents have a right to opt out of toxic propaganda from the alphabet community and transgender story time. Beautiful. That's a Texas ruling there. And states can require age verification for porn sites. Very good. Obviously, limiting the degeneracy and toxicity of the porn industry on our children. These are obvious wins. These are massive wins. Today, but this is correct. This is the number. This is the biggest one. The biggest one is stopping the nationwide injunctions. Every single thing that Trump did, every move he made, it's become a running joke, right? District judge says Trump has to orders Trump to rebuild Iran's nuclear facilities. It's become a running joke, right? It's been so insane what they've done. It ends the tyranny in the black robes forever. Today, the Supreme Court instructed district courts to stop the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump. This would not have been possible without the tireless work from our excellent lawyers at the Justice Department, Solicitor General. The Department of Justice will continue to zealously defend POTUS policies and implement them. This is massive. Huge breaking news. An opinion authored by Coney Barrett, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that rogue district judges imposing universal nationwide injunctions exceeded the equitable authority that Congress has given to the federal courts. It's a massive win for the Trump administration, rule of law, and for the American voters, and it speeds everything up. That's right. In fact, President Trump, upon this victory, has terminated the special protected status of 500,000 Haitians, a country with a median IQ of like 70. Check. So median IQ was what is the median net worth and IQ of Haiti? And then ask yourself, like, why exactly? What is the point of immigration? Like, to our nation? Like, who are the kind of people that we want in this country? Right? You need to start asking major and important questions about the survival of the experiment of America, right? This is critical. It's a critical juncture right now. If we said it a million times, but we'll say it again. If you take the entire island of Haiti, okay, you take the millions of people and Haiti, you move every one of them off that barren rock in the middle of the Caribbean. You take every Haitian and you put them in Ohio, they don't become Americans or Ohioans. They just move. You just moved Haiti to Ohio. Haiti just moves to the physical location of Ohio. They'll bring their culture, their IQs, they'll bring their traditions, good and bad. They'll bring criminality and gang. I mean, just go read any article about Haiti and like the collapsed anarcho-tyranny state that it is. They'll bring all of that to Ohio. It'll just be Haiti in what we know as Ohio. And Ohio will then cease to exist. That's how it works. So upon these orders, Trump's now, boom, terminating the protected status of 500,000 Haitian migrants. Now it is time to go back, says DHS. They have to self-deport in 2 months. Trump losing no time. Massive victories for children. Alphabet tyranny can now be stopped. Supreme Court preserving sanity. Massive win today. Religious families can, of course, opt out of alphabet propaganda in school. Good. It's amazing that has to be decided, but good. Like parents raise children, not the government. Supreme Court has instructed district courts to stop the endless nationwide injunctions now. Left-wing judicial activism has been ended. President Trump deciding that he's going to hit hard at the birthright citizenship question. This is something that he cares a lot about. The birthright citizenship hoax has been indirectly hit hard. It has to do with the babies of slaves, same year. What he's talking about there is the whole point of this was in Reconstruction, Civil War, are the babies of slaves Americans or not? This was what the whole question was 150 years ago. This was not about like whether a Russian can come here and have a kid, a tourism baby, which is what happens. It happens all the time here in Florida. And that kid's now an American with full vested rights. This is insane. They're two totally separate questions, obviously. Not scamming our immigration process. Congratulations to Pam Bondi, he says. And now the beatdowns begin. Oh, man. Amy Coney Barrett basically implied that Ketanji Brown Jackson is too dumb to read legalese. Literally her job description. She's the most unqualified Supreme Court justice in history, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was nominated as a black woman. Tell me how that's legal. We have a civil rights law in this country. And then didn't know what a woman was, which is insane and hilarious. Still one of my favorite clips of all time. Justice Jackson skips over the part because analyzing the governing statute involves boring legalese, says Amy Coney Barrett, in an absolute beatdown of historic proportions. Amy Coney Barrett metaphorically just took her gavel and gutted Ketanji Brown Jackson. Look at this. Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. Everyone from the president on down is bound by the law. That goes for judges too. In one sentence, Barrett says Jackson is a DEI hire who's too stupid to be on the Supreme Court. That's my interpretation. We do not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. In her majority opinion, Supreme Court nuking universal injunctions. Amy Coney Barrett just juked Ketanji Brown Jackson from orbit. You probably mean nuked, but both apply. But here it is. Embracing imperial judiciary. Yes. R.I.P. to the 47th president of the United States, Judge Boasberg. District judge has issued an injunction against the Supreme Court, stating that they aren't his boss. The ruling stated, American liberal judges only answer to George Soros and no one else, huh? Daily reminder that Ketanji Brown Jackson, Supreme Court commission, was auto-penned for a person who lacked mental capacity and is therefore illegitimate. She's not a legitimate Supreme Court justice. Can we start that conversation? President Trump's Supreme Court just ended the judiciary coup. Ketanji nuked from orbit. This entire decision is beautiful. We've read you parts of it. Enjoy. Totally and completely savage. This is the quote, of course, that we just read that's been shared everywhere. Universal injunctions exceeded the equitable authority that Congress has given to the federal courts. The courts grants government's application for partial stay of the injunctions, entered below, but only to the extent that the injunctions are broader than necessary and provide complete relief to the plaintiff with standing to sue. SCOTUS 6-3 decision authored by Amy Coney Barrett. Justice Thomas, why are you looking like that? Well, because David Hogg is melting down like a little testosterone-starved cuck that he is. Fuck the Supreme Court. F the Federalist Society. F Mitch McConnell. Got it. Okay. So much angry soy rage. Breaking. Judge that doesn't know what a woman is, doesn't know what an American citizen is either. That's exactly right. Ketanji Brown Jackson pauses oral arguments to ask Clarence Thomas, what is a constitution? The wins just keep coming, baby. Imagine what it would feel like to be a Democrat. USAID defunded. Dow skyrocketing. Rogue judges. Power limited. Iran nuclear capacity stifled. Zorhan is the leader of their party, the communist from New York. RNC has 5 times more cash than DNC. Criminal illegal aliens are being deported. President Trump is brokering peace deals. States will begin defunding Planned Parenthood. 128 Democrats voted against impeaching Donald Trump. White males like David Hogg are being kicked out of leadership positions of the DNC. And the Democratic Party literally has nothing to celebrate. Yeah. Amazing. Just an absolute savaging at the Supreme Court and a beautiful result here. MSNBC having a real one, having a total and complete meltdown here, psychotically. And when liberal women are this angry, when childless women, liberal women, are this angry, then it means something wonderful has happened. Okay, get your salt shakers out. Here we go.
Is effectively yes.
Yes, that's a distinct possibility, because if a state isn't allowed to obtain a nationwide injunction, then what the Supreme Court has said is every individual plaintiff, they can only get relief as to themselves individually and their children. So that means an individual, a U.S. citizen baby whose parents haven't obtained a lawyer, that the executive branch could deny them citizenship simply because they were not able to file a case to challenge the order as to them. That is just, I think, an appalling result, given how difficult and expensive it is to obtain lawyers. And again, we're talking about a very vulnerable population here. You know, individuals whose parents might be undocumented, who might be here without legal status, and you are requiring all of them to obtain lawyers to ensure their children are able to have their constitutional right of birthright citizenship.
Lisa, I know you want to weigh in too.
Yeah, I think a couple of things, Anna. One is...
And here, ladies and gentlemen, just for good measure, is the breakdown from Fox News of exactly all of the victories for President Trump at the Supreme Court today. Great Shannon Bream, she's an awesome reporter. She locks it all in, and a massive victory, a massive day for the president. Just what a way to end the week. Beautiful. Here we go.
Justice Jackson wrote a dissent, and she said, I agree with everything that Justice Sotomayor said, but I have to add my own 2 cents to this thing, and boy, is it scorched earth. She goes on to say in her dissent, perhaps the degradation of our rule of law regime would happen anyway, but this court's complicity in the creation of a culture of disdain for lower courts, their rulings and the laws they interpreted, will surely hasten the downfall of our governing institutions, enabling our collective demise. She goes on from there, but clearly she sees this decision as something she obviously disagrees with, but as a very threat to the structure of our courts and our institutions as they now exist. I understand there is something that Justice Barrett said in the majority with respect to answering Justice Jackson's dissent. I'm trying to tick back to that. But also a reminder for folks, Justice Barrett was a law professor for a long time before she got into the world of being a federal judge. She also taught classes in civil procedure, which is one of the first things that I had my first year in law school. You get it as a first-year student, but it gets to the heart of how things proceed, how the court system works. So it does make sense now that even being a more junior justice, why she would have written this opinion. And it gets to this opinion, a lot of those questions that you've heard our other panelists bring up here about certification of class actions. It takes a lot of work. It is not easy to do. And there are cautions throughout this opinion that district court judges not now simply default to that. So I'm going to go back and find Justice Barrett.
Shannon, let me ask you one question, if you don't mind.
Justice Jackson clearly sees this.
If you don't mind, one more question before you go back to that. So, as you've explained to us many times over the years, most Supreme Court cases end up 9-0. There's a lot of agreement. But then on these bigger cases, you do see the breakdown like this. Okay, so President Trump benefits from having a conservative majority in this court. But I think this is interesting because on this case in particular, it was Elena Kagan, one of the dissenters today in 2022, and I won't play it, I'll just read it here. It just can't be right that one district judge can stop a nationwide policy in its tracks and leave it stopped for the years that it takes to go through the normal process. So she said that in 2022. I guess that's why we've all thought it likely that President Trump would get a win here. Now it looks like he got a resounding win. But Elena Kagan went with the dissenters on this. And I'm curious about that decision, what you think is going on with the dynamics of the court with that.
Yeah, great question. So you're right. We had been watching her because she'd publicly talked about during the Biden years how this wasn't a good policy. It shouldn't be the way that the framers or the founders would have intended this to work. But during the arguments here, May 15th, and remember, this was a rare ad. They don't hear arguments in May. They did it for this case. She differentiated during the oral arguments, saying that this was a different case. This did not line up with the statements that she had made during the Biden administration, saying that this was a different situation. So we thought there that we saw from her during the oral arguments that she may peel off and go in a different direction. So she clearly has signed on to Justice Sotomayor's dissent. That's where she lands today. As to Justice Jackson and that very existential threat to our institutions dissent that she wrote, here's what Justice Barrett wrote in the majority opinion to that. She says, Justice Jackson chooses a startling line of attack that is tethered neither to the sources that they sought in coming to their conclusions or, frankly, to any doctrine whatsoever, waving away attention to the limits on judicial power as a mind-numbingly technical query. She offers a vision of the judicial role that would make even the most ardent defender of judicial supremacy blush. In her telling, the fundamental role of courts is to order everyone, including the executive, to follow the law, full stop. So